All right, so we are live. Cheers to you on that. Drink some delicious, structured, energized water. So, welcome again to another episode of Clifton's Clicks, the Cliff Notes to the Cosmos. I am your host, Clifton Smith, and I invite you and thank you for being here. I welcome you with all love, respect, gratitude, and motivation and inspiration to explore where this episode goes. And I appreciate your joining me in this journey and exploration. So, over the course of the past several years, I have committed myself to understanding the multidimensional aspect of reality, starting from a very basic logic perspective and Western educated society's perspective that has delved all the way into the cosmic channeling and into the realm of science that is lesser known except in the context of spiritual texts. And what I have done that for is the pursuit of my big dream, which is to create peace here on earth through a strong understanding of ourselves, through understanding peace and love of myself, as well as how the ecosystem uh, can be created to create that kind of inner peace. For even if one might find momentary peace, he or she then will go to work or into another environment in which that peace no longer exists. And of course, that's a beautiful environment to understand and truly appreciate piece of that nature. However, it's not a sustainable fashion. Peace then in that case becomes almost like a pill in which we take when we're feeling down just to go back into a system that um, brings us down again. And then we go and we meditate or we do yoga or something that brings us back up and then down and then that back up and down. And so really what I have been exploring here are all the components to creating an ecosystem to elevate the vibrational frequency of reality and your reality, my reality as well, through the intense inner work that's necessary for each individual, as well as the collective and community based approach needed to develop these higher level systems, and you might call them algorithms, and you might call that my delivery. Always when I do these things, delivery comes, a package comes. How nice. The systems that are necessary for us to maintain that state of high elevation. For regardless of how close we get to a euphoric state, a bhava samadhi state, or a blissful state, if we are in an environment that brings us out of it, then that becomes the outlier, right? One of the things I mentioned about upgrading the operating software was to really study and observe the deviations, right, from the model in order to upgrade your operating software. And one of the challenges of what is in today's reality as I see it and observe it by interacting with it in various ways is that very nature of our momentary states of bliss allow us to appreciate and understand what bliss is, and then creates an intense craving and desire for us to recreate that. And so the most direct path is to maintain that state and space for oneself by exiting one environment and entering into a closed off environment, a closed ecosystem that contains only that blissful vibratory state, but not all of us can go do that, nor is that really the direction I wish for us to take, um, based off of talking to a lot of people. And um, when I say for us to take, I'm speaking from a strategical standpoint in which cunningness is not the issue, but rather it's a recognition that every individual has a right to explore our spiritual ascension or spiritual freedom. And much like the founding fathers of the United States, that's really an important imperative towards how to build the architecture, metaverses, and realities for us to create that opportunity for everyone, regardless of where they may stand, and ensure that it's available for everyone. And of course, that is a challenge in and of itself because one can only assume so much responsibility for another individual. And in fact, it's really the individual's opted in choice to declare responsibility for his or her life. And we all start from various levels and have various deep healing needs for us to go through. And so, what's beautiful is that this is the eventual conclusion of where society is headed. Um, it's not headed towards a negative perception. That's not how this works. When we go through these momentary dips and declines, it's only to motivate and fire up an even higher rebound into a higher elevated state. And so then the necessity is to create a higher floor in which the um, lower vibrations no longer penetrate below. And so instead of it constantly being a up and down, it's an up and then a down a little bit, and then an up and then down even less, and then down until we reach that state of singularity and homeostasis, which a lot of technologists talk about. And so, while it's important and a necessary component to maintain the sanctity of a pure bliss state in a closed ecosystem, in order to bring that to the masses, it requires a very bold declaration of full commitment to that ecosystem, which means a full removal from the current ecosystem. And that is fundamentally something that there's many of us who are working to reject that notion and to say that there are graceful and easy ways of getting to that state and moving our ecosystems to that closed ecosystem's ideal. And of course, that closed ecosystem is a model with which we can feel and experience a high vibratory state and that bliss state. However, it is not the expansion strategy that's necessary in order to um, assimilate with all the other ecosystems. It can in isolation, but really what the word is here is assimilation or synergy. So, from a vibratory standpoint, it's not that cacophonous sound that deafens everything else out. It's that synergistic sound that really creates that harmony within reality. And so this is the area of the what I'll just call the enlightened ecosystem that I'm here to create, is the synergistic nature of creating those bridges and experiences and realities to harmonize with these highest vibratory states, these blissful closed ecosystems. And so with that, what I'm doing is creating a movement towards a fund, creating a fund in which it's a collection of energy, which is time, talent, or treasure, towards synergizing the highest emotional and vibratory states with the current state we find ourselves in. It's a recognition and a appreciation for the states that we all may find ourselves in, and provide different pathways for us, for the collective to, if they so choose, to navigate towards these high states, as well as explore what the resonance and formation and DNA of these types of businesses and communities and resource aggregation and distribution is. And what's nice is, as I mentioned, this is exactly where society's headed. And so, what I'm simply doing is playing a role in my own unique way by aggregating, collecting, and recruiting various individuals who are brought here to do the same purpose, as well as to play a very critical piece in influencing specific areas of our collective consciousness and various areas of the matrix, so that the minimum effective dose is delivered rather than a complete overhaul. So, for example, uh, well, I think that's self-explanatory. The main point is minimum effective dose rather than completely destroying it and rebuilding from there. This is a beautiful aspect to humans and our immune system, as well as to our society and civilizations. And the historical reality of such is that with the ever interconnected nature of our world, that is the way that it is going to work rather than a antiquated command and control dominate situation, and as well as a need in that equation for understanding and appreciation for all various dimensions of the matrix and all aspects of vibratory lifestyles, because we are connected with each other far greater than what we might think. And even though we might try to shield ourselves with walls and work in remote areas due to our reliance upon technology, that is the internet, and our understanding that everything is vibration, our vibratory fields actually do impact everyone else's. And so, with population growing and transportation advancements happening, the ability for these energies to um, either purposefully or accidentally uh, come into contact with one another is even greater. And of course, at Google and I believe Apple, big technology companies, they plan for this, plan for these synchronistic events. And so the notion that one can exist in isolation from the current structure and infrastructure is not a valid point, or not. It's not possible these days. What one can do and what is doing is creating various levels of energetic barriers between the highest cosmic source and the other aspects of the lower vibratory states of reality, such that those who are at a very high vibratory state can create a life and a structure around them that um, those who are learning to get to that higher vibratory state can be in contact with to start to elevate, but also to bring up people that are in their vibration. And what's nice is we are all connected from a vibratory state with these different nodes and mesh networks in which our current reality exists as typified by our relationships and our day-to-day interactions, both from a conceptual framework as well as a geospatial framework. And the higher one individual rises, the higher he or she brings their node network based on the degree of integrity and authenticity within each relationship, as well as the desired intent of each individual connected to that one node. And so what we're seeing is we're seeing that there are nodes all across society and the world coming together to elevate themselves, which then has a ripple effect through the mesh network of our interpersonal relationships. And one of the interesting aspects of this is it also brings to light very specific inventions and innovators who are really being incredible stewards and guardians of these more cosmically downloaded technologies to help elevate our vibration and give us that experiential taste of what that means, as well as to support the ascension process and help curtail the negative dips for those who are out in sort of, I would say, the front lines of lower vibratory environments. The challenge of that, though, is the nature of spirit and the nature of business as it's currently being conducted is not as synergistic as possible. There's a clear differentiation between spirituality and doing business, not because they are mutually opposed, but rather the way in which society currently conducts itself puts them at perceived odds with one another. And so, just like they say, don't mix, business with family, and they say don't mix business with religion or with spirituality. And of course, that is a nice way of separating spirituality and removing spirituality from business, just like it is removing it from the education system, which then perpetuates a inner craving and seeking for individuals to go pursue higher spiritual quests outside of the normal education system, because it's been clearly intentionally void of the educational format, uh, which is incompatible to an individual's reality in life, because we are a spiritual component to our being, if not one of the primary components to our being. And so our education system intentionally strips that out, which obviously creates a underdevelopment of spirituality and our relationship to spirit, which then pushes enough people to a state of seeking specifically just spiritual growth and enlightenment, which we've seen and are seeing more and more with people going on their specific spiritual journeys. And so, what this leads towards is a need for a collective effort of a synergistic vehicle, energy to combine the best practices of business with these technologies in a way that scales and grows them in a integrated way that can allow the amplification of these tools and technologies to be distributed to a greater number of individuals across the world, as well as ensure the integrity of the intention of these tools being used for spiritual awakening and growth, and the conducting of these businesses need to or are integrated towards the highest cosmic principles of living as well. And so this is a long-winded way of saying there needs to be a aggregation of energy, of currency, to distribute, to support those building the infrastructure and devices and creating the different tools, frameworks, and products and services that go into helping elevate and maintain the elevation of people's vibratory states and consciousness, especially as they go about their day to day embarking in lower vibratory states. And so that enters into the discussion and exploration of what currency is, and the notion that there tends to be a lack of money in these very high spiritual communities in which these really transformative technologies exist. And there is ample funding for specific biohacking tools and technologies, but those are at a much lower vibratory state and approach spiritual growth in reality from a fundamentally flawed and differentiated approach that will have um, pitfalls and have certain plateaus at which people will perceive. And that's great because it does its part in moving things at a certain degree. However, it's still using the antiquated business model or the venture capital model I speak to. Um, and so it will eventually all fail and get aggregated into massive technology plays that are predicated off of what one might call old world business behaviors, controlled by individuals who um, are not in full integrity and alignment with creating a conscious ecosystem. And so, what's necessary is for an exploration of what currency actually is, and as taught and meditated by me for far too long, is taught by my guru Paramahansa Nityananda, currency is a current that brings forth thought current. Currency is the amount of value and energy placed on a specific thought current in society. And so what that means is of course money is simply just a denomination, and the way at which it grows outside of a hard physical aspect, outside of the gold standard, means that it is based off of thought and energy and intention. And so what it's doing is, it's if you start to personify money, which is really the exploration that I've undertaken, is that money exchange hands for a specific thing, which when aggregated comes to a specific thought current about reality, and that is what needs to change in order for us to elevate our vibration collectively, um, as a society, and build those conscious ecosystems. For example, consumption is heavily idolized, as well as um, feeling powerful, having extreme luxury, uh, things that are quick, things that are easy, sort of the Google-esque version of things. I mean, it's very easy to see what the collective conscious thought currently holds as the most valuable by just looking at the equity value of specific companies, as well as the revenue, which I think is a key indicator, because, of course, equity value can be artificially inflated by specific individuals for short term and long term financial gain. And so, what is exchanging hands, and what is it that currency is exchanging hands for? And so, a lot of it has been academia, a lot of it has been the our houses, a lot of it has been for cars. So uh, for good reason, or one might perceive as good reasons. However, when we look at it from and healthcare, right, and healthcare. So yeah, transportation, education, healthcare, and housing are very important thought currents that we're all cherishing, as it should. Um, or potentially as it should. The challenge then becomes, is the things that are presented as those opportunities that you can purchase, are those things actually the most ideal for us? And the answer is clearly no, based off of just the lack of fulfillment, frustration, and just complete non functioning of these systems as it aggregates into a whole. The massive debt we incur, the unending premiums on healthcare that overly punishes those who live healthy, and allow those to not take ownership over their health, perpetuates itself in the education system by demonstrating that it's not an individual's fault, or there's things outside of an individual's control, because you're using an outdated operating system to validate reality and the reasons why things happen. So the causal uh, explanation is such that it disempowers individuals from taking ownership of their lives. And so, once again, that it's easy for certain people to say that, perhaps because of their lifestyle. However, when exploring firm understanding and this philosophy or updated operating software from people who start from places far harder to get to an elevated state, um, one can see it. So, hearing stories of individuals in India, China, and Africa who didn't have access to running water or shelter, and seeing how they took charge of their life and their operating models, is really what I encourage people who are a bit resistant towards me saying this to go and explore. And perhaps that's definitely a necessary component towards helping deliver this message, is that we are in control of our reality, and understanding that philosophy, and providing enough case examples and support that start to wear down all the automatic inflammatory responses or triggers people might have for me saying that. And so the fund, or the collection of energy that I am creating, which I'm declaring now, is to nurture and foster a higher thought current in terms of what we as society value, because that is really what currency is. It's the thought current that we value. And so it is all based off of not maximize profit sharing, not maximizing revenue or customer growth or equity value. Of course, we're seeing this in the corporation slowly evolve, which is great, which is understanding a social responsibility component and an employee health and wellness component. However, one starts to have to assess individually as to the authenticity of the intentions of these actions or these initiatives within a corporation, to parse out whether or not this is truly from a recognition of their importance and need for a company, society, and individuals to thrive, or is it just merely a way of increasing equity value for companies, which both are get you to the same level. It's just the different intention and vibrational state at which people are at. And so, what's great is those moves are being made. People are shifting into positions of power who recognize higher vibratory states as a necessary component towards thrival within organizations and society. And so it is the fund has a very specific intention, because when you look at things from a vibratory standpoint, the intention in which you purchase something is really how you um, charge that energy. And so when you purchase something out of a state of frustration, you are just amplifying frustration in that energy that is embodied by the currency. And so every exchange you have an opportunity to charge the money that flows through you, or with positive or negative vibrations. And so it's very important to charge them with positive vibrations. And of course, one might be challenged to even understand what a positive vibration is. And so that's an important component towards the development and education process of this enlightened ecosystem that synergizes with our current reality and heading towards a purely blissful reality. And so um, that being said, one can identify the energies that specific investors have with how their companies that they invest in operate and function. And nothing's greater an example of that than venture capital, because that investment starts from the very beginning and oftentimes with very large sums of money to jumpstart things, as well as to profoundly declare from a quantum energetic collective consciousness perspective that this thought current that this company is solving is valuable and worthy, and here's several millions of dollars of energy to declare that and make it so. And that's really how one can view investment in venture capital. Is it's really the thought current that the startup or the founder has, holding within themselves and working to embody, and declared a business plan or an intention to create and solve. That is a vibratory state. And then the next state is once it matches with an investor, which is why a investor is so important. Not just the fact that an investor has money, and even now, not just because he or she, sorry, I might have used he in the past, he or she uh, has money, or he or she has access to strategic resources, platforms, yada yada yada. But rather, what's exceedingly vital and crucial is the energetic state and vibration at which that investor is at. That is so crucial, because that investor's intention, when he or she or they invest in a company, they are charging several millions of dollars with that kind of energy. Same too, you can say with hedge funds and Wall Street, which, if you look at the vibratory state of those individuals, you can start to really understand and recognize why we live in such a low vibratory state. Not nothing against them. It's just the way the system has operated so far. And so one starts to look at investments into startups, and one of the biggest issues or challenges that come to be is the culture that is grown within these companies. And so that culture is a byproduct, yes, of the founder and the leadership of that company growing it. However, it's also remarkably tied to the energetic inner space of those venture capitalists who are investing in those companies. And so, as we can see that there are disparities in gender pay, as well as some toxic male environments in these startups that have made headline news, um, you can actually trace that directly to the venture capitalists inner space who invested. And yes, I am making that proclamation and declaration. That is one of the reasons why it's so vital and important to have diversity within the venture capital space, and it's been a huge focus. Whether or not people have truly grokked and understood the reason why that is, why there needs to be, why there is an imperative for women and minority investors. However, one thing that's completely absent from that space is the vibratory state at which individuals are at, as a important component and consideration towards whom to take money from and whom to invest in people's funds, because an individual's inner space is really what's being amplified when you invest or you fund someone's venture capital fund, or when you receive money from an investor's venture capital fund. And of course, it's not just the total capacity of an individual's inner space, it's their current vibratory state at which they are receiving the money, which can be impacted by such things that impact everyone's vibratory state, which includes the positioning of our planets and moon. And so, to just limit it to this exploration, receiving money has to be a incredible, or from a vibratory standpoint, receiving money to have the greatest outcome to elevate the vibration of your ideas manifestation into reality, as well as elevating the collective of the employees and customers of your company, as well as the collective society. It is imperative to receive that money, that investment, through a celebratory, blissful, and specific powerful state, um, from an individual or organization that has a extremely high vibratory state, that also has an incredibly pure inner space for the creation that the money is going towards. And so those individuals who are in the venture capital space from a selfish perspective, or have not done the inner work, are the ones who are going to fail your company. And so you yourself, as an entrepreneur, needs to, or I encourage you to do the inner work and maintain your high vibratory state, as well as my emphasis to the venture capital community to do its own inner work and recognize their own vibratory state. And so I have gone through an incredible clearing of my inner space, and a very strong understanding of the quantum vibration and view of reality, that I am proclaiming a fund that I am raising, and I call in whomever is on this vibrational frequency to respond to it, to join, to intentionally create specific funds to invest in companies, products, and services that may not necessarily typify your venture portfolio returns, but create things from the ground up, or to support companies and initiatives that have been set in motion that move us towards that higher vibratory collective consciousness. So move us towards that inline ecosystem from a synergistic perspective. And therefore, if you yourself are interested in investing and helping companies, which is simply creating the right API, advanced protocol interface, to connect currency to that connects currency to companies and ideas that are of that higher vibratory state, and you yourself have gone through that intense inner work and resonate with this kind of message, I am excited and ask you to reach out to me, to join. And if you're already in this process, I'd love to hear about it, as well as if you are a individual who's looking to direct their currency, their energy to the creation of a synergistic enlightened ecosystem, please reach out to me. And with that, I conclude, and the link to this website will be up and will be notified at a future video. So, with that, I thank you. What we covered today was the vibrational view of currency, thought currents we cherish, the need and imperative for incredible venture capitalists, as well as incredible exchange and investment in specific companies, and the need for a synergistic approach in order to bring about the blissful states that occur within closed ecosystems, and to recognize and share the stories and journeys of individuals who have overcome the lowest vibratory states into high vibratory states and document their journeys. So, with that, I thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on Cliff Notes. No, what am I doing? Yeah, Cliff Notes. No, yeah, is that what I'm doing? Clifton's Clicks, your click notes to the cosmos. Yes, and I am your host, Clifton Smith, and I thank you for watching. Please subscribe or comment below if what I say resonates with you and your mission. All right, have a great day. Bye.